A fall from 10,000 feet typically results in terminal velocity, the maximum speed an object reaches when falling through the air. For a human, the resulting kinetic impact is almost always fatal. Yet in 1971, a 17-year-old girl hit the ground from that height and walked away. On Christmas Eve 1971, LANSA Flight 508 departed from Lima, Peru. There were 86 passengers on board, most traveling to meet their families for the holiday. They were flying in this Lockheed L-188 Electra. LANSA Airlines had a reputation for mechanical failure. Locals even joked that the name stood for lands on its belly. The airline had lost multiple planes in the years leading up to this flight, and the Electra model itself carried a specific engineering risk. This diagram compares aircraft wing flexibility. The Electra was designed for desert flight, meaning its wings were rigidly attached to the body. Modern wings bend and absorb the stress of turbulent air, but the Electra's stiff wings were incapable of flexing during severe weather. At 21,000 feet, the pilots entered a massive thunderstorm instead of flying around it. The plane was hit by lightning. Because the right wing couldn't flex to absorb the turbulence, structural stress caused it to snap off. At 10,000 feet, the aircraft broke apart entirely. 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke was thrown from the fuselage, still strapped into seat 19F, and began her descent into the clouds alone. A predictable mechanical failure turned a holiday flight into a disaster for 85 people. However, for the passenger in seat 19F, the storm's specific conditions created a rare aerodynamic event. The question remains, how does a human survive the impact of a 2-mile fall? The data suggests 3 environmental factors combined to slow Juliane's descent. In this graphic, these arrows represent updrafts. The same thunderstorm that destroyed the plane was producing severe vertical winds. As Juliane fell, these winds pushed upward against her seat, acting as a natural brake that reduced her downward velocity. The second factor was the rotor effect. Juliane was strapped into a row of 3 seats, with 2 being empty. The weight was unbalanced, which caused the entire row to spin rapidly as it fell. The rotation created significant aerodynamic drag, similar to the way a maple seed or a helicopter blade slows its descent. Finally, Juliane hit the Amazon canopy. This dense network of interlocking vines and thick, multi-layered foliage acted as a decelerator. Each layer of greenery absorbed a portion of her kinetic energy, slowing her down before she finally touched the ground. On Christmas morning, Juliane regained consciousness on the jungle floor. She had a severe concussion, a broken collarbone, and deep lacerations on her limbs. But she was the only person from Flight 508 left alive. Physics dictated this outcome. A specific alignment of atmospheric updrafts, structural drag, and environmental cushioning combined to strip away enough speed to save her life. This view shows the scale of her isolation. Juliane was miles from any settlement, hidden beneath a green roof so thick that rescue pilots were unable to see the crash site or any survivors from above. She possessed a rare advantage for this environment. Her parents were zoologists who ran a biological research station in the Amazon. Juliane had lived there for 3 years, learning which animals and plants were dangerous. She relied on a survival rule her father had taught her: follow the water. She knew that small trickles lead to streams, and streams lead to rivers, which are the primary locations for human activity in the rainforest. For 11 days, Juliane walked and swam. She had no food other than a small bag of candy found in the wreckage. She navigated past Goliath spiders and alligators, using her knowledge of animal behavior to avoid conflict with predators. Her most dangerous challenge was biological. Blowflies had laid eggs in a deep wound on her arm. The resulting maggots were eating into her flesh, which would have led to a systemic infection or the loss of her limb. While aerodynamic chance saved her from the fall, surviving the trek required a technical understanding of the Amazon and a refusal to stop moving. On the 10th day, Juliane found this boat docked at a small logging hut. She was starving and exhausted, but the sight of a man-made object confirmed she had reached a transit route. In the hut, she found a container of petrol. Remembering how her father treated parasitized dogs at the research station, she poured the fuel into her arm. The chemical irritation forced the maggots to the surface, and she extracted 30 of them from her flesh. The following day, local lumberjacks arrived. They were shocked to see an injured girl emerging from the trees. They initially suspected she was a water spirit from local mythology. Juliane explained the crash to them in Spanish, and they began her evacuation. This portrait shows Juliane shortly after her rescue. When she reached civilization, the public was stunned by her story. She was the sole person to return from Flight 508. However, investigators later discovered a disturbing fact. 14 other passengers had also survived the initial fall. Those survivors died because they remained at the crash site. They waited for rescue helicopters that were unable to see through the trees. While Juliane walked toward a solution, the others waited for a rescue that couldn't find them. Juliane Koepcke lived because of a rare physical event in the sky, but she survived the aftermath because she understood that when systems fail, movement is the only way to stay alive.